You already know who you're supposed to be. You've seen that version of yourself before. The version that wakes up early, the version that trains, the version that reads, the version that follows through, that goes to sleep on time, that keeps promises to himself, the version that does what he said he was going to do. And that's exactly why this hurts. Because you're not sitting here wondering what your life would look like if you were more disciplined. You've already seen it. You've had seasons where you were locked in, where you were focused, where you were building momentum, where your habits were aligned with the person you wanted to become. You know what that feels like. You know what it feels like to wake up proud of yourself. You know what it feels like to have momentum. You know what it feels like to trust yourself. And lately, you've been watching that version of yourself slip away. Not all at once, not through some dramatic collapse, through small decisions. One late night, one unnecessary scroll, one promise you'll keep tomorrow, one compromise, then another, then another. And now you find yourself in this strange place where the gap between who you are and who you want to be keeps smacking you in the face. You wake up and you see it. You feel it when you look at your habits. You feel it when you look at your body. You feel it when you look at your prayer life, your goals. You feel it every time you tell yourself you're going to do something and then don't. Because the problem isn't that you don't know what to do. You do know. And maybe that's what makes it so frustrating. Because once you know the path, you lose the luxury of blaming ignorance. You know what the right choice looks like. You know what the wrong choice looks like. And somehow you keep creating conditions that make the wrong choice easier. So let's talk about it. Because if you're honest, you're already aware of the problem. That's what makes it painful. You already know what's holding you back. That's what makes this different. If you genuinely didn't know, this would be easy. Learn the lesson, apply the lesson, move on. But that's not where you are. You already know. You know why you're tired. You know why you're distracted. You know why you're not where you want to be. You can see the gap. And lately, that gap has stopped feeling theoretical. It's becoming visible. And that's usually when the frustration starts. Not when life falls apart. When you start seeing exactly why it isn't coming together. Now, I actually got inspiration to make this video because of something that happened this week for me. I've been kind of getting my life back on track, getting my sleep schedule dialed in, having a proper content creation schedule, and just getting back into fitness. And I had this one evening, I think it was last Tuesday, where I just didn't want to go for my walk or create content or do anything. I just got home from work and I just wanted to eat, lie in bed, and just rot rot in there, watch TikTok, YouTube, whatever I wanted. And then obviously when you do that, that's only going to land one place. You end up going to sleep late, you wake up late, and the whole morning is just terrible. And then that cycle kind of continues on and on and on, and you struggle to dig yourself out of it. And I think the difficult part in all of that, and kind of what I was just reading now, is you know what you're supposed to do. I know what I was supposed to be doing. I know why I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But in that moment, it just didn't want to do it. And it just felt more difficult to actually do what I wanted to do. And you might have found yourself in a similar place. And I think that's the frustrating part, is that you know who you want to be, you know who you are, and that gap is just staring you in the face. And I think as you get older, especially as you sort of get to the age that we might be, for me, I'm in my mid-20s, it's like that gap is just starting to become more and more painful. When you were younger, a gap between who you are and who you wanted to be was just a couple of years, some growth, etc. And it hasn't changed. It's always going to be that, right? It's always going to be growth and consistency over a period of time. But as you get older, you just start becoming more set in your ways. When you're younger, it feels a lot more malleable. But as time passes, you accumulate responsibilities. And I think that's what makes it really difficult, right? Is that who you are and who you want to be cannot connect. And that's difficult. And I think for me, that for the longest time, and you might think this as well, is it feels like a willpower problem. Even when you I remember listening to Jocko Willink on this one podcast, and it was actually annoying me. And I liked listening to Jocko Willink, but this thing was just like, this guy was pinpointing the thing I was struggling with. He's like, dude, I know what I want to do. I'm just really struggling to get myself to do it. And his answer was basically, just do it. And I get where he's coming from somebody who's got that mentality of I just do. But that doesn't work for most people. It just doesn't really work for most people. And I think in all of that, you start to think it's a willpower problem. It's like, man, I know what I need to do. I know how to do it. I just don't want to do it. And it's like, man, I can't muster up the willpower to do it. But what if you're solving the entire problem incorrectly to begin with? What if it's not a willpower problem? Because the obvious answer is usually the wrong one. Most people look at this situation and come to the same conclusion. I need more discipline. I need more motivation. I need to try harder. But you've tried harder before. You've had motivation before. You've had discipline before. And yet here you are. Because the problem isn't that you don't know enough. And the problem isn't that you don't care enough. The problem is that you've been trying to solve a structural problem with willpower. And those are not the same thing. Because most battles are long lost before they even begin. The person you want to become is not separated from you by discipline. He's separated from you by structure. That's the part nobody tells you. Because discipline gets all the attention. Discipline sounds impressive. Discipline sounds masculine. Discipline sounds like the answer. But discipline is expensive. And you're wasting it on battles that should never even exist in the first place. Once you start looking for this, you see it everywhere. The gap between who you want to be and who you are is not a discipline thing. It's not because you're weak. If you're anything like me, you might tend to actually have a view of like, man, that person that I look up to, whether it's like a fictional character like Harvey Specter or like an athlete, like say like Ronaldo or whatever, the gap between that person and me is willpower. Like I'm just not as disciplined as them. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I'm oversimplifying this a lot. I mean, the gap between you and Cristiano Ronaldo isn't just discipline and structure and all this stuff. There's a lot that goes into that. But if we're keeping it simple, the gap between who you want to be and who you are, you look at that as a discipline problem. Like you're weak. But these guys that you look at don't become exceptional simply because, they've got this all-encompassing discipline. Like they just got this capacity for willpower that you just don't seem to have. That's not the case at all. The big difference is environment. Your current environment keeps encouraging the wrong behaviors. It makes it so easy for you to carry on falling back into your old patterns. And that's why when I made my monk mode video about 2 weeks ago, I spoke about the importance of setting up an environment, right? An environment that keeps you locked in. James Clear speaks about this in Atomic Habits. He makes a big deal about environment. Setting up an environment, and he gets into the science of like, a habit it starts with the environment, there's a cue, and then there's a response, and I forgot, I read it a long time ago, but basically there's kind of a way your brain works, and it starts by the environment. If you're somebody who's used to scrolling in bed or whatever, and your routine is, I finish eating, I feel really full, I go brush my teeth, whatever, I come back to bed, my phone is by the side of my bed, I get in bed, I use my phone, and then I spend 2-3 hours on TikTok, YouTube, whatever the case is. Then your brain starts to see that pattern, and then now when you eat and you go brush your teeth and you come into your room, it's the same room, your phone is in the same place. Even if you decide, man, I need to change this habit, it's a bad habit, I need to go to sleep early. Your brain is trained for that system. It's trained for that sequence, right, of eat, brush teeth, lie in bed, go on my phone, and then sleep, right? So you need to change the environment if you're going to change that, right? The gap is not a weakness thing. It's not that you have a willpower problem. You need to change the environment, right? What if you lived in a whole different place where you didn't have a phone in your bed? Say you went, and this is why I always find it interesting, like observing the military. Why men, when they go to the military, they're like completely disciplined, and then when they come back, they just fall back into like their old habits and they go back to taking drugs. Same thing with rehab. It's an environment issue. You've taken somebody out of the existing environment that's created the person they are, the bad habits that they have, and you've put them into an environment that doesn't allow for that to happen, and they find it relatively easy, right, to kind of shed off the old habits because the environment is a new environment. There's no drugs, there's no like phone or whatever, like there's no thing that's bringing them back down to their old level. It's a new environment, and it reminds me of this thing. I don't know if it is from Atomic Habits or if it's from another video I've heard, but it's adjacent with this whole idea, is that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And that is it. I mean, if you could condense this whole video into one thing, it's that. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And Those people that have been put into a new environment change completely. But then you take them out of that environment and you put them back into their old environment, they change back to their old person because that's just how the brain works, right? And the other thing that's important for us to realize is that willpower is expensive. It is cognitively expensive and there is a finite amount of it. You can't carry on fighting against your flesh, let's call it, right? You can't keep fighting against your flesh like consistently, right? There's some battles you don't need to be having. You don't need to wake up in the morning, fight the urge to like, man, I want to go back to sleep, like it's cold or it's early or whatever. And then now you must fight the urge to go on your phone because your phone is like right there. And then you must fight the urge to go and freaking eat Cocoa Pops or whatever, when you're trying to eat clean. You don't need all of that. Remove that stuff from your environment. Create an environment that is favored to creating these new habits, right? And this is where it's important to note that systems beat discipline, right? And that's the whole thing. As I go back again, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Is that the systems are what make it impossible for you to fail, if you can put it that way, right? If you create a system where you don't have the phone in you, and I'm just using a very simple example, but this applies all across the board. I mean, for me, an example I can use is like working. I don't work from home anymore because I get no work done when I'm at home. I just notice the environment, right? I find it difficult to put on my laptop in the same room where I watch YouTube videos. Or I lie down on my bed and I'm just like scrolling on TikTok, whatever the case is. I find it difficult to do that. So I'm just like, dude, I'm just gonna go to the office. And there at the office, I don't have Wi-Fi, so my phone, I can't access YouTube. And I'm at work, I'm at the office and there's other people around me working. It's like, cool, I have this little routine. I get into the office, I set up at my desk, I go and I grab, a cup of tea, I grab some sparkling water, and then I sit and I do my work. It's very different to trying to fight the urge when I'm in my room to like, hey, put on your laptop. Oh, but your phone is here. Oh, but you could go grab a snack. Oh, but you could go do this and that and that. Very different, right? And in those two scenarios, the change isn't really discipline. It's just your environment makes it more difficult in the second scenario than it does in the first. And that's important for you to just realize. You're like, man, okay, first I need to change my environment. Okay, and then how can I set up my environment in a manner that actually makes it impossible to fail, if you can call it that, right? I've heard that, it's one of these things as well where it's like one of these tips, it's one of the smaller tips, but it gets across the bigger picture of the lesson I guess I'm trying to get across, is like sleep in your gym clothes, or make sure your gym clothes are set out. If you're somebody who wants to wake up early and go to the gym, like sleep in your gym clothes, or make sure your gym clothes are set out, your bag is packed, your water is ready. Like it's just like you remove as much friction from the environment as possible in favor of your positive habits, and then you put up as much friction as possible against your negative habits. So another one, sleep with your phone outside your room. If you know, man, I wake up in the morning and my phone's there and I open up my phone, the first thing I do is I go on Instagram or whatever. It's like, hey, why don't you cut that out of your environment? Leave your phone outside. Get an alarm clock. It's not that expensive, honestly, if you want an alarm clock. I got one like 2-3 months ago. It was like 150 rand. Like it wasn't that bad. Like, get it and make the biggest difference for you. Sleep with an alarm clock. Now the alarm goes off. You're in your gym clothes, or your gym clothes are there set out for you. Everything's set out for you. All you need to just get up and then go and like brush your teeth, yada 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 yada. But you're not fighting this phone thing, and you're just making the environment work in your favor. And that's a big thing. And that's why, again, people always speak about, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Similar story. If you're around people that live life a certain way, you're gonna be falling into those standards. And if you're around people who live a different way, you're gonna fall into those standards, and it's very important. But this changes the entire conversation. You do not rise to your intentions. You fall to your structure, your routines, your defaults, your systems, your environment. That's what determines who you become. Because every structure produces an outcome. A phone beside your bed produces an outcome. A chaotic morning produces an outcome. A distracted environment produces an outcome. And if your structure is producing the wrong man, no amount of motivation is going to save you. But bad structure creates another problem. And this is where things get even more expensive. Your life does not need to be easier. It needs to be simpler. Because the thing exhausting you isn't difficulty. is complexity. Think about how most people spend their day. I learned about this thing of context switching, and I won't forget it. I forgot which book I was reading. I think it was So Good They Can't Ignore You, or it was one of the books before. But it was speaking about how, like, what makes modern work very difficult for people to kind of get into a place where they can do something meaningful. And there's this idea of, like, man, you log onto your laptop and you've got emails, you've got Teams, you've got this that needs to be done, you've got this meeting that you need to have, you need to do this thing, then you need to do this thing, and it's like the human brain isn't made for that. It just isn't. We're not made for crazy context switching. And context switching is just basically, okay, I was in this mode. I was focused on this particular problem. I was getting quite entrenched in it. Now I need to quickly switch and remember everything about this new problem, or this problem I was dealing with last week. And it's just so cognitively expensive because things take longer to actually just put together as human beings. That's how our brains work, right? It's difficult for us to entrench ourselves in one problem and then pull ourselves out of that and put ourselves in another one, and then remember all the context that's important for that specific problem. It just takes us a while, and it's cognitively expensive. Like, it's tiring. I'm sure you felt this in some way. Where it's just like, man, this is just jarring. Like, I hate doing this. Like, I remember, like, studying, for example, I think school. You've got this section that needs to be done. Cool. You get yourself in a section, and then now you're done with that section, and then it's like, oh, I need to go and do this section. And I think that's what made exams difficult, is that, like, you'd have different sections that you need to answer. So it's like, okay, I studied this section, I studied this section, I studied this section. And then when you get a question, it's like, oh, this question's about this section. Then the next question's about a different section. And it's like you've gotten yourself in a way of thinking about a specific thing. And then the next question is pulling you out of that and taking you to another thing. And now you need to remember everything about that you need to consider in there. And it's just difficult. It takes a lot out of you. And when we're speaking about environment, it's imperative that you take into account that thing of context switching and how cognitively expensive it is. I remember Chris Williamson. He said something around how humans are not actually averse to difficulty. We're not averse to difficulty. We are averse to complexity, and I think it leans into the same kind of discussion, right? We don't struggle to do difficult things, man. Like, we love doing difficult things. It's just get the time to work at your natural pace and to fully entrench yourself in that specific problem. It's a whole different story than, oh, I need to do this problem, but now I need to sort out this, and you sort out this, and you bring this in, whatever, and then we just collapse, right? Again, think about how different it would be, right? Let's use New Year's resolutions, for example. You start a year and you're like, man, okay, I need to get in shape. I also need to start a business. I need to do better at this. I need to get my sleep dialed in. I need to build a social life. I need to do all these things, right? That's a lot of things to aim at once, and that almost guarantees you're going to fail. But picture that versus a person who's like, I need to get in shape this year. Like, that's it. That's a whole different story, because now it's like, cool, I know what my one goal is. You could wake them up in the middle of the night and be like, what's your goal for this year? And they could tell you, get in shape. And obviously there's a lot of things that go into that, but the goal is still the same, right? It's one whole context. And it takes me to my next point on this, is that, like, flow requires cohesion. I mean, we all envy, like, people we see, we're like, flow state. Man, this person reached flow state. I remember watching, like, a Messi video. It's like, oh, Messi, he was in flow state. Like, we envy flow state because in flow state, you're not thinking about a lot of the things. Like, everything is just working together to achieve the goal. Your brain, your body, I'm just trying to think of all the other words, like metaphysically, all this fancy stuff, right? But everything, your entire being is locked in on one specific thing. You want to do something, your brain just thinks it, your body just does it, and you're just in flow. It's just great, right? And at least you're actually achieving things. We're not averse to doing difficult things. You're not averse to doing difficult things. You can do difficult things. In fact, you want to do difficult things. The tough part is that you're trying to bring in all these other things that make your life complex, and then complexity is where we just kind of just crash in on ourselves as humans, because we're not built to handle complexity all the time around a lot of things. It's just supposed to be as simple as it can be, and I think that's an important thing for us to remember and to build into this. Again, your environment should point you towards the one goal you're trying to achieve. Basically, stop making it complex. When you want to wake up in the morning and you want to go to the gym, if your entire environment is set up that way, and you know that's your goal, and your life is set up in a way that actually points you towards that goal, Going to the gym is much easier in the morning. It just is. You wake up, you're in your gym clothes, your stuff is set up, your alarm clock is there, you just wake up, you go brush your teeth, grab your stuff, and you go to the gym, right? That's very different to, oh, I've woken up, I want to go to the gym, I need to go brush my teeth and do all this stuff, but then I've also got this phone here, and it wouldn't hurt for me to go onto TikTok, or maybe it would, and then, I want to go grab a snack. I want to do, like, all of a sudden, all these things are coming in that are just making everything just blow up. And now there's chaos and there's complexity. And then all of a sudden your need for willpower has just gone up. And then, again, that's a losing battle, right? And that's why so many people feel exhausted despite not really moving forward. You don't need more information. You don't need another productivity hack. You don't need another podcast. You need fewer competing priorities, fewer interruptions, fewer inputs, fewer context switches, because momentum requires continuity, and continuity is impossible when your attention is constantly being dragged somewhere else. So if structure is the problem, the solution becomes surprisingly practical. If your current structure is producing the wrong outcomes, stop trying to become a different person. Build a different structure. And this is where most people overcomplicate things. So the first thing that you need to do, something I learned a long time ago, we're speaking on the idea of systems. I've always been in love with that idea of like set and forget. Now, nothing in life is ever really set and forget, but I love the idea of like, whoa, where's my camera? I love the idea of, I want to build a gym routine. Like, I want to get into shape. Cool. I know exactly what I'm doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if I'm doing 6 days a week. I know exactly what exercises I'm doing for how long. I know exactly what I'm eating Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday. And I just need to rinse and repeat. Like, I love that idea of like, cool, at the start, I put in the work to decide, cool, what am I trying to achieve with this goal? How am I going to achieve it? What exercises do I need to do? How much rest do I need? How long do my workouts need to be? You do all that work at the start, but then once you build it, you just follow it. Like, I've always loved that. And that's a hack that I think a lot of us kind of missed out on, right? That's why it's something we had in our youth, actually, like with school and stuff. You had a routine that kind of forced you to keep going. But then as you get older, obviously, the routine kind of starts to break down, and then your routine is maybe determined primarily by your work, and then after that, you're kind of just all over the place, and then that's what makes it difficult for you to actually change. Like, think about it, man. If you're like, say, you're someone like me, you find yourself in a job where you're like, I can't. I need to escape the matrix, right? And I need to use like my evenings and my weekends to do something else. It's very difficult, when you come back from work and you're tired, right? If you need to come back from work, you're tired, and you're like, man, I want to do something with my life. I don't know what exactly. I haven't pinpointed what I need to be doing, but I want to do something. And you get home, you're tired. You don't have a plan. You don't have like, I'm supposed to do this from this time to this time. You don't have any of that. No, of course, what are you going to do? You're going to go onto your phone and you're just going to like waste your evening and then your weekend, right? And that's what makes it very difficult, just making it difficult for yourself. So the first thing is you need to actually build the routine. Like, you just know what you should be doing. That's what we love about like the military, for example, right? That's what makes it so attractive. It's like, cool, there's that discipline, but that discipline, as we spoke about, it comes from environment, routine, structure. That's important, and that's important for you to put into your life. If you just take some time, maybe at the start of the year when you're doing your New Year's resolutions or whatever the case is, you take a weekend, maybe you take 2 weekends or 3 weekends to do it, but you decide, cool, I want to do this, I'm going to do this routine, right? I want to go be a YouTuber, right? Okay, cool. Every Saturday morning, I'm going to film a video. Okay, how do I come up with ideas for the video? Maybe Friday evenings. I have my Friday evenings open. Or maybe it's Thursdays. I'm going to brainstorm. I'm going to, chat with AI or whatever the case is, and I'm going to come up with a video idea. And then on Saturday morning, I'm just going to put on the camera and just going to talk to it. Done. Now cool, I can get back to my life. I can come back from work tired, but I know, cool, Thursday evening or Friday evening, I need to take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long it's going to take to come up with a video idea. And then Saturday morning, the most important thing for me to do is make sure I film my video. Now all of a sudden, you've got something that keeps going. You can start figuring out other stuff in your life. You can be surviving, whatever the case is, but you know what you're doing every week, and it's pointing you towards something, right? Which takes me on to my next point. Your routine. How do you actually build your routine? The way you build your routine is informed by your goals. And this is something, again, you probably want to do this regularly. New Year's resolutions, it's definitely it's become like cringy because obviously people make New Year's resolutions and they never do anything with it. But it's an opportunity that must be taken advantage of, right? Because it's just a natural stop and start point. And my man, new year, there's a chance for you to like, new year, new you, however cringy it is, like it's a psychological thing that works. You've got this thing of like a fresh start. Take that time to think about what you want to be doing. What are the goals you want to achieve? And again, we spoke about it earlier. Make your goals simple. What is it? At the end of this year, if I achieve this thing, I'd be happy with the year I've achieved. Now, don't make too many things. I spoke about this in monk mode as well. You want to choose in advance what you're going to suck at. That's another skill we just don't have as modern day humans, I guess. We want to achieve everything. And you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. That's something I've heard before that I'm just like, that is true. And it must be held true because it is. But set your goals. Maybe it's just 1, 2. The less goals, the better, because the less goals you have, the easier it's going to be for you to stay focused on that thing and actually achieve it properly, right? You set your goal and you're like, okay, cool. Maybe I have 2 goals this year. 1 is get in shape and 2 is to advance in my career, or maybe start up a YouTube channel or whatever. Cool. Now you know what's going to inform your routine. Cool. In my routine, I need to set up my routine in a way that allows me to get in shape by the end of the year. And then I need to set up my routine in a way that allows me to have, I don't know what your goal is. I want to post a video a week on YouTube, that I have 52 videos at the end of the year, right? Whatever the case is, your goals are going to inform your routine. And then there you just kind of figure out what works. But that's how you build your routine. Set your goals, and then from your goals, it's going to inform your routine, and that informs your environment as well. And the other thing, as I mentioned, is you want to keep it simple. You want to reduce friction, reduce complexity, remove unnecessary decisions. That's important. Remove unnecessary decisions. We spoke about it. You don't want to have your phone there and be like, man, I know I should be going to the gym, but like, I could be on my phone. I could take 5 minutes. I could take 10 minutes, or maybe not, because 10 minutes doesn't usually mean 10 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes usually means an hour based on my experience. But I could have the willpower today to just do like 15 minutes and then I'll be fine. Remove that whole thing completely. Just take your phone out of your room, and then you've removed an unnecessary decision. And I think that's important when you are building your routine. And then the simplicity creates consistency. And when you strip all of this down, the answer becomes far less glamorous, but much more powerful. You do not need a complete life overhaul. You do not need a perfect morning routine. You do not need to become superhuman. You need a structure that consistently points you in the right direction, again and again and again, until consistency becomes easier than inconsistency. Because the men who look disciplined are often the men with the best systems, not the strongest willpower, the best systems. And maybe that's the real issue. You keep looking at the gap between who you are and who you want to be. And every day that gap feels a little more frustrating. Not because you don't know what to do, because you do. You've known for a long time. You know the habits, the routines, the choices. You know the standards. You know the man you're trying to become. In the end, the problem is that you've built a life that keeps pulling you away from him. And then you wonder why becoming him feels so difficult. But your life is already producing exactly what it's designed to produce. Your routines are producing something. Your environment is producing something. Your habits are producing something. Your structure is producing something. The question is whether it's producing the right man. Because one day, the person you're becoming won't be theoretical anymore. He'll be visible in your body, in your habits, in your confidence, in your faith, and in your character. And if you don't like the direction you're heading, don't start by questioning your potential. Start by questioning your structure. Because the person you want to become is not waiting for more motivation. He's waiting for a life that's designed to produce him. You guys let me know what you think of this topic and this idea in the comment section below. If you're looking for brotherhood and community, make sure you hit subscribe. Join the Discord as well. I've got a link in my bio. And until next time, see you guys.